Welcome to more coverage from GP San Antonio here in Texas. My name is Marshall Sutcliffe. I am joined in the booth by Jacob Van Lunen, and we are taking a look here at Pat Cox on the left-hand side of your screen. He just top-8'd the last GP here in the States, which was Charleston last weekend, and he is playing against Florian Koch. Yes, and they're both sitting at 5-2. Now, this is the point of the day where the players that are at 5-2 are fighting for their tournament life. If the person who loses this match is not going to make day 2 and is going to have a lot of free time tomorrow. Now, the people that have X and O, as we say, perfect records currently, or maybe even X and 1, are fighting for every single match win that they can get because they're looking forward past just getting to day 2, and they're looking at how am I going to make a run to the top 8 tomorrow. But for these two players, this is an elimination match from the tournament. Now, it isn't technically. They can keep playing for the rest of today regardless of what happens, but they don't have a chance to make day 2 if they lose.
Yeah, both of these players have their backs against the wall. Florian is... did he top 8 last weekend? I don't think he did. He came very close. I covered.
He was at the top tables late. Yeah, you were doing text coverage last weekend.
I was, yes.
And so you got up close and personal with a few of these matches. We did have him on camera a couple times as well.
Yeah, Florian is I believe he's a Dutch transplant, now living in the United States.
I thought he was German or Austrian. Is that not right? His name is extremely German.
Yeah, well, I asked him last weekend if he was German, and I think he told me he was Dutch. But
okay.
Maybe I asked if he was Dutch, and he told me he was German. Yes. I don't know. I just but he's from that part of Europe. Yeah, he won Grand Prix Lyon.
In 2010. There was one last month, but he didn't win that one.
We're just looking up quickly where Florian's from.
We're looking up where he's from while the players are resolving mulligans, since there's nothing really going on here anyway.
And now looks like Florian going down to 6 cards here.
Oh yeah, I was there as well, but not playing actually.
That was actually my first pro tour, so I made day 2 and I was happy with that. I started at 3 and then won the next 5.
For these two at their deck styles, I'd be...
Did bad once there, but whatever.
We're getting a quick look now at another match that's happening. This is Luis Scott Vargas against Tyler Brenstatter. Luis Scott Vargas on the left, playing bank control, against Tyler on the right, who is playing white aggro. Restoration Angel comes down for Luis, attempt to block the champion of the parish. Tyler sent him to the red zone, but Tyler has a Selesnya charm to make that big enough to kill the Angel. Tyler not attacking with the Howlpack Alpha?
Yep, that's what it is when it's transformed. We see that Luis just played a Preem Verdict, however. And back to the daytime side of Magic the Gathering, we have Pat Cox leading off. It looks like he got the same that he top-8'd last week with. He's got an order of bullets to start things off. He had 1 tower in the main, and last week, I remember on the written that you got about each of the players in the top 8, he said he wished he had more Talrands in the main. And we'll see if he's done that for this week.
I mean, that was a nod to the mirror match, which is going to be his prevalent week.
Hey, that's a little bit different.
Yes, it seems that Patrick Cox be Pillar of Flaming this week.
It does look like it could be the case. Pillar of Flame fitting fairly well into the deck. Now, what is Florian Koch on here? He's got a Pillar of Flame in the yard and 2 Hinterland Harbors on the battlefield. Is he playing Rug?
I think he might be peddling some Nightshade.
Oh! Because I got to say
I had to guess
that Rug is my favorite 3-color combo, and I'd love to see if he has some little spice here. Now, this... is that binding? He left a little piece of paper in there before.
For the last one?
I guess you can change his mind. I do see an Is It Staticaster in his hand here. Interestingly, Staticaster does not have Defender. It's an 0-3 with Flash, but it does not have Defender. It can pick up a pike and attack.
It's definitely something that's worth noting. And I mean, you can flash it on their end step, get them out of nowhere with it. Very similarly to flashing in a Snapcaster Mage. And
we have confirmation from our text writer.
Florian Koch is from Germany.
Yeah, which is, I would have bet, yeah, that with that name, if he's not from Germany, like something went wrong. But you said he lives in the U.S. now?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what he told me.
All right, so Restoration Angel for Pat Cox. And it does resolve. He's going to target the Augur of Bolas. Get the trigger from the Augur again. He's going to grab a Searing Spear. Pat Cox looks like, yeah, it looks like he's playing a different version of his deck pretty significantly here. Maybe he's changed out a bunch of the counter spells for burn spells, being more, more proactive. Searing Spear. All right, he's not casting it. He was just showing Florian just so that it was clear what he got from the Augur of Bolas.
Yeah, but did you hit him for a damage?
All right, so it looks like the judge is asking a few questions about what exactly happened, but pretty clearly the Restoration Angel entered the battlefield. Yep, he pointed at the Augur of Bolas, and the Augur of Bolas trigger then resolved, and yeah. So just clarifying at the table. And Pat Cox is going to battle with both of his creatures.
Florian at this point going to 15 and going to 14. It may not seem overly relevant, but with the Searing Spear in Pat's hand, it actually changes the clock by a full turn with the pike in play. So he may want to cast Status Caster and block the Augur of Bolas.
Wow, you're right, it does.
Chooses
it
not
looks
to.
like he's not going to. He'd rather keep it hidden. There
are definitely reasons to do that. So.
Yeah, one thing you learn when you watch a bunch of blue-white being played is that every damage counts. They get in damage in the weirdest little ways, and then it adds up to being like a turn later on. All right, so Snapcaster Mage is going to target Thought Scour. He's going to target himself. He pitches an old-school Syncopate and an is it Staticaster? Is that or is that one of it's a Counterflux is what that is, not a Staticaster. Yeah.
So he is playing Counterflux. That's interesting. Counterflux, an uncounterable counterspell for 3 mana.
It has the limitation of only being able to counter spells that you don't control, which is not really much of a limitation, although it can be.
There are certainly times where you'd like to counter your own spell.
Now, that other card is a Staticaster, though, so I know that he's all right, this is a rug deck proper here, as we see a green-red card only come down. That's a Huntmaster of the Fells. He points at it to indicate that he'd like to trigger its Enter the Battlefield effect, which is going to not only gain him 2 life, but also give him a 2/2 Wolf token, which I'm sure one of the judges is going to grab and get on the table here. Another Thought Scour for Pat Cox. Now that Runechanter's Pike is looming.
It's getting bigger and bigger.
It is getting bigger and bigger, and eventually Pat Cox is going to be able to activate it. He also finds himself another Restoration Angel, which is going to target the Augur of Bolas. Now, he missed on it, didn't get any value there, but he gets to untap with double Angel, Runechanter's Pike, Augur of Bolas into a tapped-out Florian Koch. So, a likely equip here, would you say?
I mean, the equip means he has 8 points of power in the air, and Florian's life total is divisible by 8.
Okay. So that does seem likely then.
Yeah.
I like the way you broke that down. Pillar of Flame is going to take down, and it's actually going to exile the Huntmaster of the Fells so that Pat Cox doesn't have to deal with any shenanigans afoot there. And sure enough, it's going to be 9 right now because of the Pillar of Flame. That's why I did it during his first main phase.
That's going to put Florian down to 7. And now even if Florian has another Huntmaster, that's still going to be lethal in the air the next turn.
Ah, yes. And Pat Cox plays his land, and it is a Hollowed Fountain. He's going to play it untapped, indicating that he probably has a card like Dissipate in his hand. At least that's the kind of card that Florian is going to be worried about. But Florian doesn't look worried about it at all as he goes to the scoop phase, as we say. He is going to concede the game, and we're going to move on to game 2.
And we see one of Florian's Cavern of Souls there has a stamp on it, meaning that he had
he drafted
acquired
it
that at a Pro Tour Grand Prix.
Yep, must be
two.
nice. All right, so this board has gotten very well developed with Luis Scott Vargas on the left-hand side, and it looks like he's got 2 Restoration Angels, he's got a Thrag Tusk, he's got an Acidic Slime, and 2, those look like worm tokens. I'm assuming that they're beasts, though. And he's got a Detention Sphere to take out another. It looks like he's got 3 Detention Spheres on 3 different Silverblade Paladins, and he's going to attack with every creature he has. Again, I'm assuming that those are not 6/6 worms. They could be. His deck could easily run Garruk and have ultimated. This game seems to have gone on forever, but my assumption at this point is that that's not the case.
1-3.
I mean, if he's chumping one of the 6/6s and not the Thrag Tusk,
then
it's not a 3/3.
Then
it's
it could
6/6.
absolutely just be a worm token.
So
here.
he might just be playing Garruk.
Yeah. Be pretty sweet if he ultimated Garruk. I don't think there's any other way to get that 6/6 worm token in Standard that I know of. And it looks like Luis Scott Vargas has taken down this game. I'm assuming that was still game 1.
Much luckier drawing the Silverblade.
It was. So they're going to go to their sideboards here.
Yeah, in another order, it could have been much worse.
Luis Scott Vargas, one of the best in the business, best players in Magic right now. A bit behind right now on pro points. Really needs to make a run at it now. He has a couple weeks left. Would really like to have a top 8 finish here at the very least.
Mm-hmm. He did top 8 in at GP Philadelphia. That was a limited event, but Luis Scott Vargas, good at all the formats.
Yes.
Excels at all the formats.
It's been around for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started playing more competitively, first started going to bigger tournaments, I remember him as Paul Cheon's friend.
Yes.
And then he won nationals that year. And
then he
we
was
were like, wow,
Luis
he's really good. And then over the course of the next 2 years, he just absolutely exploded, and it became very clear that he was one of the absolute best players in the world.
That's right. And he still retains that title. He plays in most of the GPs and all the Pro Tours and such. He was also at the Players' Championship. All right, so we're going to move back to our main match here. Pat Cox on the left-hand side, up a game here at GP San Antonio. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I am joined by Jacob Van Lunen here in the booth.
I think it still counts as a
Florian Koch, he is looking to find a way to battle on the same axis that Pat Cox is battling on, and it's going to be tough for him to find it, I think. Pat Cox's deck looks pretty interesting.
TCG players and their competitors, your pairings for round 5 have been posted.
5's like they can have a reasonable hand. 4's like I don't have enough cards to actually beat you usually. So.
He had Sigarda of Caverns in both games.
Yeah, probably good enough.
In the top 8 of Magic Online PTQ.
Now,
missed the
Florian's
full first pack
deck
of the draft.
is
horrible deck.
something that was
mulled to
popular
4-1
in
down
Europe
a
last
game in
week.
the first round and won the
Florian is
PTQ.
European.
Uh-huh.
Let's discuss that.
Yes.
I see a correlation here. This is definitely,
Which is probably better
I can
than
connect the dots here.
Definitely
There were 2 players playing the Nightshade Peddler deck last weekend in Bochum, and both of them top 32'd.
Oh,
Massive
really?
Grand Prix.
Wow, that's fantastic.
One of
Wow,
them
that's
undefeated in day
super
one.
impressive. Wow.
Yeah, so
All right, so both players have kept. Florian Koch has led off with the Hinterland Harbor, and Pat Cox has a Hollowed Fountain. See if Florian has a turn 2 play here. He does. It's just a Hinterland Harbor, though. So building up to sufficient mana while Pat Cox plays a Sulphur Falls and an Augur of Bolas. He loves that card. And he finds a Searing Spear with it. Passes the turn back, and we're going to see a Thought Scour from Florian. It's going to hit Talrand Mizium Mortars. That is Talrand, right?
it is Talrand.
Yeah, Talrand Mizium Mortars. Wow. I like his deck so far.
This deck is weird.
I agree with that. He has a red mana source in the form of a mountain. Does he want to pass the turn back? Does he have a Static Caster? I see he's got a Mizzium Mortars in his hand there as well. Certainly doesn't seem like a great time to cast it.
No.
He's going to take a damage here. No problem. And a second Augur of Bolas for
See if
Pat
this gets
Cox.
Essence Scattered. I imagine Florian's going to use that here.
I do see that he's got one in his hand, so, you know, does he want to save it for something like Restoration Angel?
He may have something like Static Caster,
Yeah.
and
Next draft, if you're interested in drafting, come up to the side.
Well, that's awkward.
Nightshade Peddler.
Did you see what he ripped a Dispel?
Yeah.
Awkward. After you decided not to
Not to Essence Scatter.
not to Essence Scatter. Now that Essence Scatter gets a bit worse. All right, so Snapcaster Mage to get back a Thought Scour. It's going to hit a couple of lands, and he gets to untap, draw, and draw. All right, he's got a land. He's going to pay 4 mana for Talrand himself. Oh, there's one in the yard. There's one on the battlefield now, too.
Yeah, not particularly strong, though. He knows that Pat has a Searing Spear in hand.
Yeah, so he should definitely assume that this one's just going to bite it basically immediately.
In a lot of ways, this play by Florian, he's really hoping that Pat's going to miss his land drop, and he probably has something big that he wants to resolve next turn.
Okay.
So he's trying to get Pat to just tap out, only have the spell mana open.
Okay.
Because Pat has to Searing Spear this Talrand here.
Yes, he absolutely doesn't have a choice.
Either that or Florian just forgot that Pat has a Searing Spear.
Also possible. All right, Cliff Drop Retreat. All right, good. Searing Spear indeed. We just had Michael Jackson's name called for a side draft and prompted some poor impressions.
Yeah. The greatest entertainer who's ever lived.
All right, so Florian does get, in fact, to untap and have the world at his fingertips. He can resolve whatever he wants. He's going to play a Runechanter's Pike and equip it. So that wasn't super amazing turn. He played a tapped Steam Vents as well. And does he start attacking here? He's got one. He's got a Mizzium Mortar, so he's attacking for 3 here if he does attack.
So evens up the score at 17 all.
17-17.
Pat, again, looking to be ahead this game.
We noticed last week that Pat Cox is a very, very patient player. He'll wait if it's needed as long as possible before doing the play that he has to do, have as much backup plan as possible. He does go for an equip here on the Augur of Bolas and an attack. I believe it's also only giving +1/+0, so it's just going to knock down Florian down 3 life points to 14.
I mean, he can be pretty comfortable knowing that Florian doesn't really have much that he can do to pressure. Last turn, Florian had Pat tapped out, had access to 5 mana, and all Florian could muster was Runechanter's Pike that's giving +1/+0 and equip.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Pat doesn't really have to worry that much.
All right, so it looks like Florian's going to go for a Mizzium Mortars, not overloaded, on the Runechanter's Piked Augur of Bolas. In response, Pat Cox is going to play Thought Scour, target himself, and then says, yep, that resolves. I mean, does he care at all here? I mean, it's going to pump up his Snapcaster Mage another point of damage. So Florian looks like he is just trying to race here.
Yeah, he's just trying to get in there with that Snapcaster.
All right, another Thought Scour is going to make Pat Cox, his Runechanter's Pike is going to be massive all of a sudden. It was 1 last turn. He attacked for 1. He attacked for 1 +1.
5?
Yeah, now it's like 4 or 5.
I didn't quite see everything that got flipped in the graveyard by those Thought Scours, but
it looks like there's kind of a reflection there, so we can't really see either.
Cavern of Souls from Pat here. Let's see what he's going to name.
Cavern's naming Angel.
He named Angel.
4.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5?
5 damage total. I think the pike is 4.
He has 5 instants and sorceries in his graveyard.
It's 5. So
the pike
it's
is
actually
5.
6 damage. It's going to put him down to 8 here.
Wow. Pat in a really commanding position here. And now that he has that cavern naming Angel, he's very well protected from the Mizzium Mortars that Florian Coke could play.
All right, Florian is tanking it out a bit here. He's down a game to Pat Cox. Doesn't have a lot of wiggle room here, but he does have a Talran the Sky Summoner. Does it resolve is the first question. If it does Florian have a 1-drop instant or sorcery that he can use to make a Drake? All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. He's going to use this opportunity to resolve his Restoration Angel. He is going to target his Augur of Bolas and have the effect go on the stack here, because even though it knocks the pike off, he still can grab an extra card out of the deal, and I think he'd rather do that than and just have to pay 2 mana to equip. He's thinking really hard.
Apparently difficult decision. Chooses to go with Pillar of Flame.
Maybe
Strong
doing
choice
some
here.
combat math here.
The Pillar of Flame, you know, if he had something that he was strongly thinking about besides Pillar, that's pretty interesting. At this point, I mean, Florian almost tapped out.
Yep.
So
Yeah, and Dispel
he
doesn't
does
hit.
have and he has the Dispel in hand, right? So
Yeah.
he can just Pillar Florian, right, and then equip the pike to the Angel, and Florian dies.
Florian has to have a Thought Scour here. All right, he doesn't, though. He decides to just Pillar Talrand instead.
Oh, and then it's still lethal.
We expected
because you get 1 extra damage in from the
Yeah, it makes the pike
Pillar.
enough to kill Florian, and then
Yep. And he attacks, and Florian extends the hand. Pat Cox able to take down Florian. Florian tried to do his best to mount an offensive there by just keeping the board clear of his small guys and attacking with his Runechanter's piked creatures, but it looks like Pat Cox had that turn where the pike went from 1 to 5, and that changed the math dramatically.
yeah, the triple Thought Scour turn was a big turn of events.
It was. Remember, those Thought Scours themselves make the pike bigger, plus anything that you hit with them, so it gets out of control pretty quickly. All right, looks like in our other feature match, Luis Scott Vargas was victorious in his match.